Alright guys, Supreme Kami over here. So I am going to be doing the alteration review for the new big scale Gundam Barbatos Lupus Rex over here. So before even doing some alterations over here, I do want to do a few summons over here because in terms of the torso, it's a little bit busted. In terms of what I seeking in this game, we're gonna portray a torso is definitely it because it does have that buff EXQ effects, which is definitely something that I want to portray. So let's kind of see if I can kind of get lucky. I do only have 7,000 hard trips up here, so hopefully I can get something. But if not, I guess I can just sit in the elbows until I can eventually buy it or summon for it some other time. So let's kind of see. So at this point in time, I should have dropped a video talking about the 36 hours banner, so that should be live by now. So let's see. Oh boy, yep, looks like I don't, yeah. So every time it happens like this, right? So every time there's something that I truly need, for example, I'm just not gonna pull it. So oh, all right, never mind. It looks like that we are gonna be getting something here. So hopefully it can be the torso, and then I'm out of here. Like just need to get the torso, and then whew, and then we can move over to the alteration tab and just gonna talk about if the Lupus Rex is any good. So let's see. We are only sitting at 6 parts over here. So in terms of, let's say, the pull rate, it should not be too bad. Oh, that's a weapon. Oh, gosh. Probably not something that I am a big fan of at the moment. So that is very unfortunate, is it now? All right, let's see. I don't think. Yeah. Oh. All right. Okay. 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 We are out. We are out, boys. We are out. I am actually gonna do one more because I do want to be sitting on a good amount of L badges. So, but we are done. Okay, okay, that was very unexpected, and we got shafted, obviously. So that was definitely a huge risk because like 3 summons in, we got shafted twice, and are you kidding me? So that's what I'm telling you guys. If you guys are like planning to get some part, for example, definitely don't go for these type of specific banner. At least go for something like the 36 hours long banner. At least it's kind of guaranteed in a way. So that's gonna be pretty much it in terms of the summoning aspect. Just want to get in a little bit legs of summoning. Next week, 2 weeks later, when we do get the anniversary banner, definitely gonna go a little bit harder. But as of right now, since they are pretty much not anything exciting, quote unquote, I know that we do have some brand new EXQ for the arms and then actually the mage. So not actually that mad, but in terms of talking about like quote unquote brand new, definitely do want to wait until anniversary. At least I do want to see what kind of new batters that we can be expecting. So let's kind of jump into the alteration and see how good the Lupus Rex is. Alright guys, so we are over at the alteration tab over here. So in terms of the Lupus Rex over here, this one is actually quite the funny one in terms of the overall stat distribution, what's going on. But in terms of like just looking at the overall spreadsheet over here, just doing your my general kind of like melee plus the 40% change speed, it looks pretty decent, for the most part. Head part is looking pretty good. Torso is looking like, huh? Where like why is it all the way down here? So I'm pretty sure you guys might be asking, why are the stats so lackluster? Like, why is it everywhere? So I guess the biggest kind of like answer to that is just the overall kind of stat distribution. You guys can see that in terms of, let's say, just simply looking at the header to begin with over here. You guys can see that everything is pretty much balanced out. You don't see anything in particular that stands out in a way. You can kind of judge like, oh, the armor looks pretty good in this one, but in the most part, for example, normally speaking, you don't see resistant or physical resistance having that high. So in terms of this one specifically, what you don't want to do, instead of using only the, let's say, a specific 40% change gear, for example, you actually do want to use the resistant gear for this one specifically, if you are doing full set. But normally I would say if you're mix and match, for example, mashing, kit bashing, this part or that part, for example, using the rest gear is not really the go, for example. So this one, I would definitely say it is on a fairly odd spot in a way. But you guys can see that all the stat is very much, well distributed in a way. Armor is like 9k, and then melee attack is 7k, and shot attack, obviously for the head part, it's a little bit higher, kind of, in a way. But defensive stat is like, like what's going on? Like did they drop the ball somewhere? But you know, it just this one is just really balanced, so it's just hard to kind of judge how good this one is, because in terms of, you know, because how I rate these based on the actual change gear. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, so basically, if we go over here, so it's gonna be under this gear. So you guys can see that we have gears such as these over here. So basically, raise your melee attack by 40% up your melee defense over here. In the likes of this one, for example, Lupus Rex, you guys can see that in terms of the raw melee defense is so bad, you know. So that's why if you're talking about the full set of the Lupus Rex, the best case scenario is definitely to use this one over here, because this one raises melee attack and shot attack by 35% of your total resistance. So if you combine both of them together, for example, you get roughly about 6k to 7k per part, for example. So even 35% of that, you are getting a very nice chunks to both your melee attack and shot attack. So that's why it's just one of those oddball that you don't see anywhere. So but you talking about the big scale, for example, do you want to summon for example? I would definitely say no. For the most part, this one is not really like a crazy melee centric in a way. I would definitely say we have gotten, you know, a few better ones. Let's say, I mean, even Destiny, like would I even put Destiny over this one? In a sense, kind of yes. There are some, you know, stat wise on this one definitely is a little bit geared towards a better melee stat, for example. So I would definitely say Destiny is low-key better in a sense. But if you're talking about what is the best portrait, like if you compare portrait, for example, obviously, you know, the Lupus Rex has one of the more eye-catching, in my opinion. This is just me, because I personally do run these a lot, so I can say I need it for sure. So alright, so let's kind of start things with the head over here. So in terms of the head, we do have the EXQ, the AV Limit Breaker. So you guys know me, I tend to not really care too much about these awakenings over here, just because of the fact that you can't chain these over here. Let's say you run this on your EXQ slot, and then you also do you run the tail blade over here. You can't, because the fact that in terms of the tail blade is actually an awakenable EXQ. So once you, so let's say, you know, you want to proctor this one to gain like a 60% melee attack up here. It looks cool, you know, 60% pretty high, but once you proctor this EXQ over here, that 60% get canceled because you cannot stack, you know, awakenable EXQ. So it's kind of like a dud in a way. So generally speaking, I do not, you know, I 100% do not recommend running these over here, unless in the likes of you pair it up with some, you know, non-awakenable EXQ, let's say the straight rough rain bicep, or if you're talking about the Vidorla EXQ, the Demon Hunts, for example. Those are not awakenable, so you pop this one 60% melee up, and then you pop bicep, you gain another, I believe it's another 40%, 49% from bicep, so they stack, right? But this one, you pop this one, then pop this one, they don't stack. So kind of keep that in mind. But you know, generally speaking, I don't recommend you know, kind of going for them. So if you do pull the head and you want, you ask like, do I want to alterate it? Should you alterate it? I would definitely say no. I would definitely reserve the L badge for maybe some of the, you know, the part that has the portrait. I think those are probably the better candidate anyway. So that's that. All right. So the trophy part of the whole Lupus Rex is definitely, in my opinion, definitely has to be the torso part over here. So let's switch over to the torso. So in terms of the torso, yeah, the stat you can't even see from like the top 20. So this one is actually ranked, you know, a little bit lower just because of the overall defense. It's not being carried. So even 40% of that 3,700, it doesn't cut it, because you guys can see that. Look at those resistance. So in total, they're like roughly about 8k. So if you take 8k out of 35%, that would be really good. But if you generally speaking about 40% off that 3,700, no, it's just really bad. So that's why I would say in terms of Lupus Rex over here, they're throwing us like a huge curveball over here. So they're not packing this one with like extremely high defense or shot defense, for example, but they went ahead and make this one extremely, like literally every stat across the board is like quote unquote balanced. So just looking at this one over here, I would definitely say the armor is a very outstanding kind of, you know, part up here, and it's not looking bad, honestly. This one's good, but this is where the portrait comes in handy. So in terms of portrait, this is probably one of the most, ridiculous, one of the most superb portrait that's possible, because the second portrait gives a buff EXQ effects up by 35%. So for those who does not know how these actually work, so for anyone that does know, for example, we can run up to 3 EXQ, for example, right? So if you pop EXQ that has effects like these over here, you gain, so for this one over here, you gain a 50% melee attack up, right? So if you pop 3 EXQ that has similar effects that raises your shot attack, melee attack, for example, so basically they are gaining an additional this over here. So basically you stack these per every EXQ that you activate. So, and keep that in mind, you can stack these portraits as well. So you can get up to maybe 120% or even maybe 135%, for example. So per every EXQ you pop, you add another, so for instance, this one is 35%, so you add another additional 35% per whatever the EXQ is doing. So that's why these portraits in general are just so good. But on the upside, like if you're talking about what is the kind of like the negative aspect of it, if you run EXQ such as these two over here, for example, from this build overall, this one does not have any additional effects, so like you're not gonna gain any additional buff effects. So that is gonna be the downside factor if you're not consistently running EXQ that has buff, like any additional boosting, for example, like this one over here does not have any effects, so you're not really gonna benefit from that. So that portrait essentially is gonna be a waste, so you just won't be able to use it all, so generally speaking. So it's good and bad at the same time, so it really, it depends on what kind of playing style you're looking at. So but overall, in terms of the treasure part, is definitely going to be the torso over here. So if you guys do put a torso, for example, you got your L badges, definitely throw this into your grove hanger. Definitely do alter this one probably one of the best part possible. Work type wise over here, you do have protect, high firepower, so definitely a very solid one. And kind of keep that in mind, the first portrait, it is a EXQ boosting. So this one you can technically throw this into your shop build. You can definitely do that because this one is like a kind of like a universal one. So so for any of the meta players out there, this one right here is gonna be place your Banshee Nord torso. This one also will replace, let's say, for the melee aspect, the Kamars with Dart Torso. So it is actually quite good. This one right here knocks out basically 2 parts. So this one is like a 2-in-1 deal, if you want to call it. It works really well for both melee and shot. So this one definitely the best part possible from the set. Alright, so moving over to the arms over here. So unfortunately, I was not able to put the arm over here. So this one is actually a brand new EXQ. So since I'm not able to test it out myself, so I don't know if this have any iframe on activation, for example. Iframe meaning if you're executing this EXQ, are you gonna get hit, for example? I don't have it. So if you guys do have it, for example, do let me know when you guys are testing it. Are you guys still taking hits while you're attacking, for example, right? That is always gonna be the biggest question, because you can definitely get knocked out in some situations. So definitely do want to check on that. Unfortunately, I don't. Even on the actual Twitter EXQ, like their own showcase, I can't really see any of that. So but this one is actually quite good. This have some pretty nice spread, deep pierce and S power, so looking very powerful at max out. So what is it? Oh wow, even at base EX skill level 1, you are looking at S minus power already on alteration. That's hot. But in terms of the overall side, you guys can see the continued trend of having a very high beam and physical resistance. So I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you guys about this one. It's just kind of a very odd over here. So let's continue to have some pretty nice chunks of good armors over here. So that's always going to be a nice addition. But in terms of the overall rankings of this one, it's actually not too bad. Like, you're still within like the first 5. Like even when this one does not innately pack some high defensive value over here, so it's not looking too bad. But for any of you guys that, let's say, pull this one over here and you run running, for example, I will highly encourage you guys, for whatever subside you guys are going for, definitely do try to see if you guys can pack some good portrait, because I know, because I have seen a lot of you guys' build, you guys tend to, let's say, throw, so if you subside, for example, people tend to throw in another EX skill for the subside, for EXQ that, like, for a main part that has the EXQ already. So that is a problem already, because you're not getting any percentage portrait, so you're innately just gonna outright perform horrible in battle, because you're not getting the actual power boosting. So So if you guys are doing any form of subslot, for example, or you want this one to be a subslot, do make sure if you sub this one, for example, do make sure your main slot has a good portrait. Or if you want to subslot something into this one, do make sure your subslot has a good portrait, and then you're pretty much set to go. This one does have some pretty good portrait, you know, or war tag, pro tag, high power, definitely a very good combo over here. So this one honestly is not a bad option if you guys need a good arm for melee, for example. But if you guys can, definitely try to go for this one over here, because currently right now, even as the recording, we're still under that 36 hours EX Ultra banner, so you can technically get some of these, you know, highly treasured, you know, kind of parts over here for a melee build, for example. So definitely do so if you want. But yeah, but in terms of whether or not you want to alterate, I don't think it's that necessary to alterate, just because the EX skill alone should hit pretty hard without the alteration. But if you on the other side you want to use it, definitely do so. But I will not. I'll definitely put the torso at number 1, maybe the armor 2, and probably the head part maybe 6. Definitely not worth it in a way, in a sense. So alright, moving over to the leg. So in terms of leg, we are going to continue to see some suffering in terms of the stat over here. Obviously not going to be in your top 10 whatsoever. Is it even in the top 10? No, not in the top 10. That is because the overall melee defense is just going to continue to slack away over here. But in terms of the overall resistance over here, you continue to shine. So this one in total, you are rocking roughly about 8k in total. So 35% off that should be a pretty sizable chunks if you are doing that. But honestly, if you are doing part mix and match, you will never find any other part that has some good resistance. So it's just the unfortunate factor that this one just kind of sucked in terms of the defensive department. But in terms of the overall portrait, this is some pretty good ones over here. I like for the torso, I didn't even talk about the condition over here. So condition on this one is literally the same thing as the torso when armor is 1% or more. So this one, I like the fact that they went for the Omar. So like you know, going back to the actual IBO lores over here. So if you want to talk about the Lupus Rex over here, like why is it 1%? The only kind of speculation that I can give you guys is the fact that I believe, I don't know, is it towards the very last episode of season 2 for the Iron Blood Orphans over here, but Mika, and then is it the other guy that pilots the Gushin Rebate, is it Akino? They're both getting rain from, like, you know, those what is it, those arrow from space over here. So like they're literally on the brink of like literally dying. So so that's why I guess the 1% armor comes into play over here, because like they were literally, they were all bleeding, they were like about to go. So you know, even with that, that's why I guess they went 41%, because you know, even with the last sliver of breath, they still continue to fight. So I mean, like that's probably the only explanation that I have for you guys over here. But you know, 1% is obviously going to be a very big W for us over here, because if you do take even remotely a sliver of damage, for example, let's say we take 20%, 30%, or even 40%, you're still going to be able to proc the ZX skill or portrait over here. So that's always going to be a plus for the player base. So this one honestly not a bad option. You know, this one is honestly pretty good because you are going to be offering that squad EX skill boosting. So not only are you going to be able to benefit, your other 2 ally, your whatever in your squad build, for example, will be able to get that EX skill boosting as well. So always going to be a huge plus. In terms of the second conditions over here, just want you to be using a blade category, so that's should be a hard thing to do. With that, you are going to be able to get another EXQ power boosting. So this one is again going to be another quote-unquote universal one once again. So in terms of these specific parts over here, so they count as a power boosting as well. It's just that they have it as a new language, having like additional effects. The other effects is let's say your enemy has those let's say enemy power reduction, for example, or to be specific, let's say your enemy has portrait that goes along the line, enemy EXQ power reduced by 30%, for example. So you have this one over here, so that basically cuts literally all their 30%. So what they're doing to use is only minusing 10% of EXQ power that you would do to your enemies. So honestly, these portraits are more superior than your traditional ones over here. But overall, definitely a very solid portrait over here. So if you guys do pull the leg, for example, and you do have the elbow for it, this one is definitely something that I'll consider altering, just because this one just it just again, this is gonna be another one of those dual setup that you can potentially run for your dual type build, for example. So honestly, pretty good overall. So all right, so moving over to the backpack over here. So in terms of backpack stat wise, it's looking a little bit better than the rest of the part that we are looking so far. So not bad overall. Continue the trend. You do see some pretty hefty high amount of resistance. So just gotta be it's just gonna be the overall trend for this Lupus Rex over here. Unfortunately, this packs some pretty good base melee attack already, almost at 8k. So that is honestly very impressive. Maybe if you do see you have some pretty low melee defense over here, that does not really matter in a sense, because you are heavily carried away by that base melee attack. So that's honestly pretty good. All right, so taking a look at the tail blade, your custom EXQ over here. So this one is going to be a further step up than the current one that we have, like the S attribute, the other alternative attribute. So in terms of this one is simply going to be raising your squad speed by 20%, also going to be raising melee attack of your squad by 59%. So this one stay the same, but the other two effects over here, those are new. So you're going to be gaining so your squad is going to be immune to getting flinch for a set period of time. So that's actually going to be pretty good. And you are also going to be gaining the property of debuff effects on all your gunpla that are going to be gone. So that is honestly pretty good. If you're happen to run into a situation where, let's say, I think this one is going to be fairly common in arena specifically, like especially on 3v3, where you might have enemy that apply some debuff to all your ally, for example, you and your ally. So this part, like once you execute this one, you should be able to immediately erase everything. So that's honestly a very nice touch over here. So this one definitely deserved an alteration, because this one does go up to an SS minus power. But on the upside, if you guys don't want this to be a big scale, you don't want it to look kind of weird, for example, you can definitely have it stay true at just the 1 to 144 scale. But honestly, I would definitely say the SS power is going to come into play pretty good in a way. Just being able to see a big chance of damage is always going to be a good thing in a way. But this one, I would definitely say it's not a bad option for the alteration as well, but definitely I will not place it any higher than the late auditor. So alright, so last but not least, we do have the super large maze up here. So this one does have a brand new EXQ. This one is something that I personally have pulled. So you guys watch the beginning portion, I was able to pull this one. So in terms of this one, I'm not really the biggest fan of this EXQ. First of all, this one is not an I-frame EXQ. So as I was executing, for example, during the duration of the actual EXQ animation, I was like constantly taking hits. So this one is like it kind of like a red flag already if you're talking about you're surrounded like a group of enemy, and also you are able to get knocked out from this EXQ just upon even activating, or just even in mid animation. So honestly, not gonna be the most superb EXQ going on, but overall, just seeing a new EXQ, in my opinion, is definitely better than nothing in a way. So in terms of this one, animation wise, it's not too bad. It's just gonna be using these super large maze over here and just doing like a few savage attacks over here. So nothing too crazy. So that's that. In terms of the overall parameter, we do see a large, well, let me switch over to this one over here. So this one is outright just going to give you a large chunks of melee attack over here. So no additional, let's say, defensive side over here. So that is going to be an unfortunate factor in a way. But I guess, in terms of this one over here, I wouldn't really go for the alteration either, just because of the fact that this one is, locked onto an EXQ over here. So generally speaking, in terms of, let's say, a melee build, you do want a pretty decked out, melee weapons. Maybe like something like the Heat Lance Tempest over here. That is going to be from your, what is it? Target F's type over here. So I mean, like I would generally, oh no, this one should be from the Wing Zero P Scrap version. So generally speaking, for a melee build, I'll definitely go for something that is going to give you a good first punch rate already. So in terms of a subslot, for example, you don't have to worry as much in a way. So, but overall, that is going to be pretty much it in terms of the Barbatos Lupus Rex up here. So in terms of the overall stat distribution, it's definitely very goofy. I can say that much over here. But in terms of this one over here, definitely do have that very good, portrait for the torso. So that's why that is definitely going to be the definitive winner for this overall set. Other than that, in terms of leg part, definitely a very good supporting type role. Just like with that first portrait, even that one, you wouldn't even necessarily need the alteration if you're simply using it as a supporting type for your ally, for example. So overall, in terms of those portraits, they are very good. But in terms of EXQ, head part, arm part, or even the blade, I wouldn't consider needing an alteration ASAP, just because of the fact that, head part specifically having awakenable, not really that good. But overall, do kind of keep that in mind. I should have mentioned this way at the beginning. This one is a big scale, so there is definitely not a right or wrong answer, because big scale is ultimately going to help you build a better team, just being able to get better parameter overall. But in terms of prioritizing what you alterate, those are definitely going to be my recommendation. Definitely go to put the torso first if you got the torso. So definitely torso, leg, backpack, and then the other one definitely alterate on whatever things that you feel like you need for your build. So overall, that is pretty much it in terms of the alteration review for the Gundam Barbatos Lupus Rex, and then I'll catch you guys on the next one.